Pop, what's going on, man?
Son, how you doing?
Another week, another pod, man. Doing good, feeling good. It's
Rolling.
been a good weekend. Got a little Sunday sauce on the stove. Sometimes life gets so crazy. You gotta just say, I'm waking up tomorrow morning, I'm making sauce, and I'm not doing anything else. And here I
Gotta
am
love
doing the
that.
podcast. But I had to shut the whole program
That's
down,
on
kick
you.
it, talk some ball with my pop, relax. And here we are, man.
Got
Feeling
post
good.
game
Lots of fun
vibes.
stuff
Post
to
game
talk about.
vibes with the pod time today.
Yeah, back to well, not quite. Yeah, I guess this would be about post game, almost exactly. And what's it going to be? 4 months from
So
now?
imagine just
Ah,
thrash the Eagles
can't wait!
32-20
Can't wait!
to take
I
the
want
division lead.
I want them on Thursday night to open the season.
Yeah, we'll see. That'll be exciting. Schedule release is going to be May 14th, so something to
Yeah,
look forward to there.
coming
Yeah,
up.
May already. We're rolling. It's coming. Season's coming.
Insanity,
Got a
insanity.
little bit of what do you say, OTA action happening. Not a lot of news out of that, but there
Yeah,
was some. So this could be the perfect lead in. Like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff, please.
of
Helps
course.
us a lot.
Nicely done,
There
Pop.
was some really big Commanders news this week that we need to
Yeah,
catch up on.
I mean, probably the biggest news since the sale.
Yeah,
DC, Muriel Bowser, and Muriel Bowser, Josh Harris, and Roger Goodell hold a press conference and announce the return of the Commanders to RFK Stadium in DC. The plan is obviously going to be to take the one that's there now down, build a state-of-the-art roof stadium. They're going to redo the whole campus, housing, parks and recreation, hotel, restaurants, retail. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be super, super sick. So I'm so excited about going back to RFK. I mean, RFK is before my time. I
have you
never
ever been
did.
there?
I've been to RFK for some United games, for some DC
Soccer,
United
yeah.
games, but never for football. Of course, was before they moved to FedEx before I was born. But Pop,
I'm
talk a
sure that
little
was
bit
with me.
about. Yeah, it was. Talk a little bit about what going back to RFK Stadium means to you.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with RFK. I was probably about a 15-20 minute ride just across the Maryland line. I spent a ton of time there, also watching more soccer than football, although I've went to a couple of football games. It was so hard to get tickets. It wasn't easy to get tickets back then, believe it or not. So yeah, it's exciting news. It means a lot. That was when, the Redskins were the Redskins and we were winning championships and making runs. It was a magical place to go watch a game. You've heard all the stories, stands rocking up and down. George Allen, Joe Gibbs, really some magical times, for the team. So it's exciting. I know there's a bit of opposition, to the idea of the stadium being down there. I think it'll get through. Look, I'm not a politician. I'm not a
Thank
resident
God.
of DC, although I was born there and I spend time there. And I love the city. But I don't know. To me, it just seems like the return on investment is just so obvious, right? I mean, it seems the team is putting up, you hear different numbers, anywhere from 2.5, 2.7 billion dollars. The city's putting up somewhere around a half a million. You can't really ask Josh Harris to do a whole lot more. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of negotiating. But, one Super Bowl in the city is $1 billion, I heard. So
Yeah,
it's like, how can it not return the jobs, all the opportunity? Get into the details here, but, there's a lot more than just the stadium happening, right?
well, and especially because it's not like they're tearing down an apartment complex to build this
It's an
stadium. That
eyesore.
land is just sitting there, a complete eyesore, like you said. It's just a wasteland. I mean, it looks like something out of like a zombie apocalypse like video game right
Right.
now. Like there's just nothing going on there. So to create this hub there, like you said, the retail, the parks, all that stuff, that's 365 days of the year. Those are jobs, those are families being fed off of this space. Now, these are opportunities for DC business people to get in, be a part of what's going on. Hopefully, they find a way to prioritize people from DC or DC people to get those opportunities. I think that would be really cool. I think it would be amazing if you could have like uh all the restaurants and it's not just Chick-fil-A, Shake Shack, da 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 da. It's
Yeah.
local DC spots kind of embrace the culture. I think that would be cool. Um, but overall, like I have one small kind of silly wish. I hope they find a spot of the stadium where they can make the stands bounce in like a safe way, or like some kind. If there's some kind of
Yeah.
homage they can do to that, because I always thought that was the coolest thing ever when I
Well,
was a
that was
little kid.
that was because it was originally like a baseball stadium design. So when they
Yeah,
brought in the extra stands for a football stadium, so that was almost by accident, right? It was a little freaky. I sat in that section and I felt the stands bounce. Believe it or not, it was actually a U2 concert. I
yeah,
was sitting in that section and, the crowd started getting into the show and it was bouncing. I don't know that I've been there for a Redskins game. I was, yeah, definitely, uh, watch some games there. But yeah, that'd be cool. I don't know that they, go out of their way to make that happen. But, the fact that it's going to be a roof stadium, I think
yeah,
that's great. I just think that I look at what happened at Nats Park and that area of the city. That area of the city was the same. There wasn't a ton going on. It's all built out. There's restaurants. It's a cool time. Like a lot of times when we go to a game down in that area, if it's the soccer stadium, Audi Field is close by, we want to spend the day there because there's
yeah.
so much cool activity to be around there. It's cool to walk around the restaurants, the waterfront. So I think it's just great. I hope they can work it out. Um, I think it's just would be a great thing for the city, and it'll be a destination place. I mean, you see it with SoFi out in LA, right? What it's done to that, how it's transformed that area. It's just a cool
Yeah,
spot, even to just go hang out. Even if you're not going to a game. So, and it'll be, state of the art. So, what's not to like? And I think DC to have, I read some articles and they talked about it. This will be, the national stadium for the United States, right?
yeah,
The fact that could attract the Olympics and, international soccer games and big time concerts and all kinds of other events, right? Other football games, right? They could have college bowl games there and maybe the occasional, maybe University of Maryland plays there once a year or something. So let's just hope it gets done. It's exciting news. I don't think we need to spend a ton more time of it. I mean, I hope they get it done. I hope they get it done on time for 2030 so your pop's not too gray and old and we can get to some games there. That would be fantastic.
yeah. No, we'll definitely make our way there for some games. I'm sure, like you're gonna have to sell a limb to get
Maybe
a
we'll be
ticket
a
the first couple
five-time Super Bowl
seasons, but
champion by the time we open that stadium. Who knows? What do you
possible,
think?
possible. Yeah, trending, certainly trending compared to the last 30 years over what's happened over the last year, I'd say. Um, but yeah, I love the last thing is just the dome. Like I love that they're
Yeah.
gonna put a roof on it. I know there's some people on Twitter that like want to pretend like they're tough and say like, oh, football's meant to be played in the rain and the snow. Man, if I can, have you been outside in DC in December? Have you really been outside? You want to sit out there for 4 hours? I mean,
I'll admit
me
it.
and
I'm
Utah.
soft. I'm soft at this advanced stage.
Well, and
I'm good.
when the alternative is for the price of a couple tickets and a trip down to DC, you can buy an 85-inch TV and sit in your basement and eat buffalo wings and enjoy the game in 4K. When that's the alternative, why? Like, I mean, we were going to go to the Falcons game. We decided not to because of the weather. Like, we're like, oh, it's probably going to rain. It's going to be gross. Weather ended up working out. Would have been great to be there, but like those decisions get made. And for me, somebody who lives out of town, that's a fan. We can now confidently buy tickets in December and plan, circle it on the calendar. So we're going to that game and we're going to make it to that game. We don't have to worry about if I wake up and it's 42 degrees outside and pouring rain, you know?
Yeah. No,
So grateful for that.
it's great stuff. Let's hope they can push it across the finish line. I agree. The
It's
roof
going
is
to
a
happen.
great thing. Even talked to your Uncle Nick about it, who's 11 years older than me, and he's all for it. So
Yeah,
make more of a traditionalist than him. So let's get it done. Let's get it done.
definitely.
And I mean,
Definitely.
Josh Harris just firing on all cylinders, man. Firing on all
The
cylinders.
GOAT. The GOAT.
Yeah.
The best thing to happen to DC
So look, I
sports
can't
in my
wait.
lifetime.
for your kicking game breakdown next. I don't want to rush you along, but I just
It's
can't
all
wait for
good.
this next bit of news to hear you break the tape down on Matt Gay, our new kicker.
Well, yeah, so Matt Gay has joined the Washington Commanders, releasing Zane Gonzalez. Obviously, Austin Seibert's not a part of the program anymore. As long as he just kicks for 17 games next year, he kicks for the whole season. Well, probably 18, 19, you assume will be a part of the postseason. As long as he kicks for 17 to 21 games, however many we end up playing, I'm happy. He's nails inside of 50 yards, doesn't really
That
miss
didn't
an extra
miss last
point.
year, I don't think.
So I'm all over that. He's not great from outside of 50, but the
Who
bottom
is?
line is like this team. Well, there are kickers who are better for sure. Like
Yeah, but who's great?
he's
I mean, it's no one's great. I think
he's
there's
he's
very few that are great. Let's put it
he's
that way.
average to below average from outside of 50. But this team, with the way this offense runs, with Jaden Daniels, with the way Dan Quinn is, you're not going to be kicking a lot of 50-yard field goals. It's very rare that you're going to be making that decision. I think analytically, I think they've kind of made the choice that like they're going to go for it on fourth in most scenarios. I mean, we saw them convert on 4th and 11, 4th and 6, 4th and 3, the best fourth down team in the NFL last year. You should expect that to continue, especially with some of the additions that we've made to the offensive line. We'll talk about that in our post-draft segment here in just a minute. But I'm all over this. I think more reliable, steady veteran hand. This is what they tried to do with McManus last season, and then the whole lawsuit that ended up getting thrown out situation kind of screwed that up, and you ended up in the abyss. But this, they want to solidify the kicker position, so I think this is doing that.
It's a smart move without a doubt, and I think just being automatic from inside 50, I'll take that all day.
Yeah.
And he becomes, this is a crazy, crazy stat. He's the 8th kicker we've signed in the last 14 months. That's just insane. So if we can get some stability at that position, and God loves Zane Gonzalez, every time he lined up to kick, it was just, you think about the doink, right, in the Tampa game, even though, Dan Quinn played that perfectly, right? The taking the kick in that moment, running the clock down, taking the kick in that moment was the right thing to do. None of us felt confident that kick was going in.
No.
None of us did. And,
No.
you always have a little bit of a nervous feeling in a situation like that, but this was beyond that, right? This was broader than that. So, yeah, good to see us try to solidify the kicking position, put it away, one more checked off the box, and
Yep.
yeah, so good stuff.
Done. And moving on. Can Matt Gay rush the passer? Yeah, what's Matt Gay's swim move looking like? So that's our perfect segue.
He's got to fight Tressway for snaps.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. We'll get into that in the post draft vibe check here. We're going to talk a little bit of just leftover stuff from the draft. Obviously, we missed the 7th round pick last time, which kind of counteracted some of the points I was making about running back. I was excited. I'm excited about this kid. But we've got obviously round 1 at number 29, Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon. A little bit of a surprise pick there, but a great pick. We're happy with it on the back end. Round number 2, Trey Amos, cornerback out of Ole Miss. I pick 61. Round number 4, pick 128. You have Jalen Lane, speedster out of Virginia Tech. This is the one I'm probably most excited about now, like days later, like really thinking about the way that speed is going to impact this offense is really exciting for me. And in round number 6, you took Kane Medrano, linebacker out of UCLA. A little bit of a tweener, a little bit of an undersized guy. You figure maybe he ends up being like a nickel box safety hybrid, kind of like Buffalo nickel situation. And then round 7, you have Jackery Krosky Merritt, JCM, out of UNL, running back. And UNL, I thought he went to Arizona. But
he did, but that was where he had eligibility issues. That's where it was.
Yeah.
That's how it was listed on ESPN. So,
got it. Okay. Yeah,
he had eligibility issues. Yeah.
He basically had one game, and he played one game where he got over 100 yards, played well, and then they were some kind of issue with the way he redshirted his freshman year, came back up, and he got forced out. So, but he played really well in the Shrine game. measured well in the combine, got good speed, seems to fit into what we want for a running back here. Significantly better RAS scores than Brian Robinson, if you're looking at that. I think it's a kid that can come in and can compete for the RB2 role right away. And I think this is a situation where if slash when Brian Robinson has some kind of hamstring, ankle, knee situation, or just starts to run out of steam, maybe this guy starts to challenge him a little bit. But what's your vibe off all these picks, Pop? I kind of gave mine.
I tell you, I'm excited because I agree. I think in each case, the only one that I look at as a project pick is Kane
Madrano,
Madrano.
yeah,
I feel like that was a guy who's new to playing linebacker, and linebacker just to me seems like one of those positions where almost like quarterback, where you've got to have done it for a long time to really be good at it. So I think that if there was one that I reached at, great athlete, but one that maybe they reached at, maybe they think they can make a pass rusher out of Kane. I've heard that mentioned. He's the one that I think is the biggest project out of all of it. But every other pick, I feel like the value they got for the position they picked in. And Jalen Lane, I agree, is a guy that could be a weapon, because
yeah,
you could use him how you want to. And he can get yak. He's got that speed. Get him 3 to 5 touches a game, And, I feel like he's obviously was touted as the best punt returner in the draft, and that's a position that they need to secure up. So that's fairly important. So I love that pick. Love Trey Amos in the second round. We talked about Josh Connerly. I think overall it's a great pick. And yeah, I love the Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt JCM pick. I think he's a running back 3. Best case scenario to start the season. But once the season starts and he gets some touches here and there to relieve the team, to relieve Robinson, or he might make a splash. He might put some pressure on him. But I
yeah.
think he's competing to be a running back 3. And I think that'll depend on how he performs. I mean, he's got some competition with Nichols and Rodriguez, who we like a lot as well. But I love that pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing about the Madrano pick that I think is interesting is um, he's just got a ton of athleticism, and yeah, like his tackling and stuff like that. But a lot of the issues that you have with that guy are technique related, and I think those are things that maybe can get stirred up at the next level, and especially playing behind a guy like Bobby Wagner, a guy like Luvu for a while. I think that can kind of help in that scenario. Maybe you turn him into a pass rusher, but he should be at least a good special teams contributor. Jalen Lane is really exciting for me because that's speed to just take the top off the defense. If you line up in a 3 receiver set with Lane opposite Terry, then you Debo in the slot, and then you come out with Eckler in the backfield, James Daniels, and Ertz at tight end.
Yeah. Well,
What do
that's
you
the idea,
do?
right?
What do you do? I mean, Ertz is a great possession option. Debo's a great possession option. Either Debo's a possession option that, if you miss a tackle, he could take it to the house. Terry's obviously a vertical threat. Maybe he doesn't have I still think he has it, but maybe, at 29, 30, doesn't have the same 4.3 speed that he had coming out of college. Still can burn by guys. But now you've got Jalen Lane, who, if you look at the role De'Ami Brown had in the offense, this is a better player than De'Ami Brown was, in my opinion. Or at least this is the guy with a much higher ceiling than De'Ami Brown. So if you take Jalen Lane and put him in position with De'Ami Brown, I mean, De'Ami Brown, for all the talk of how fast he was, ran a 4.46. So this is a guy who's 12 tenths of a second faster than him, or 0.12 seconds faster than him in his 40. And Jalen Lane made most of his bread and butter at Virginia Tech catching screens, catching bubble stuff, because he just simply did not, in his college career, did not have a quarterback that could push the ball down the field.
Yeah. There weren't a great team. So,
No.
his production was definitely hurt by that.
In this kind of offense with that kind of skill set, you have an ability to really burn. That's what I said, is just keep rolling. If you're going to keep rolling coverage, do the Philly special and put a corner on Terry and then roll another safety over top of him all game and force Jaden to throw to the rest of the targets on the field. Well, he's not going to be throwing to Noah Brown all that much anymore.
Well,
You're
and I think,
throwing to guys that can really hurt you.
and you think about, just if you're focused on the passing game, how much has the pass protection been improved, right? With Larry
Exactly, yeah.
Tunsil and Josh Connerly, who, are good run blockers and can perform well in the run game, but are both rated stronger as pass blockers.
Yeah.
So, if Jane's got that extra half second of time to throw, and we got those weapons out in routes with options, what year two of being comfortable in the offense, another maybe good lead into our next topic, but it could get scary.
Yeah, and I mean,
scary.
Not to mention that you say, okay, we're gonna go, cover 4 drop, 7, 8 guys back into coverage. Start doing that, and you've got the best athlete on the field with the ball in his hands, with everybody with his back turned to him.
Yeah.
Being Jaden Daniels, being the most dangerous quarterback in the NFL with his legs.
That's a great point.
So it's like, if this was Justin Herbert running this offense, you'd go, how do you cover it? But now you've got, a guy that can run as well as anybody in the NFL, maybe better at quarterback. It's just, I'm very excited.
I think the exciting thing is like what Adam Peters was able to do in terms of rebuilding this team in 1 year, and then you bring a lot of those guys back, so you have this foundation set. And now you're starting to draft. You're already starting to see situations. Well, man, they went offensive line. Man, they went quarterback. But you're starting to stack guys at positions and create competition. It may not be the guys playing who you think are going to be playing, because there's going to be competition and they're going to have to earn their spots. And that's a great spot to be in, I think.
And to that point, defensively, you do worry about pass rusher a little bit, but we'll talk about that in the next segment that's coming up. So we'll save that for that. So we've got 5 post-draft questions, the top 5 questions. These are curated by Pop. Really well done here. Good stuff to discuss.
Curated.
First question. Yeah.
Sounds important.
Is that too fancy of a word for you?
I like it. No, I like it.
I got to get you a Borders gift. Do they still do Borders, or is it all Barnes & Noble? I got to get you a gift card to the bookstore, man. And not that I'm any better, but top 5 post-draft questions here, curated.
I thought that's what you did with a honey-baked ham. You curate it, right?
No, you curate.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Awful. But top 5 post-draft questions here. The first question, what are the expectations for Jaden Daniels after additions at offensive line and receiver? How does it change your expectations? What are your expectations for him next year? What do you think, Pop?
Well, my expectations for Jaden Daniels, we always got to put a little JD love in there, man, as often as we can. My expectations is to exceed what he did in year 1. In fact, you're not going to hear from me, like some people are wanting to say. Generally, it tends to be fans of other teams. But some people want to say, they won a lot of close games. They got a little lucky here and there. We could see a little bit of a drop-off. Maybe it's a 10-11 win season, which would still be good instead of 12. Heck with that. I think Jaden is going to come out firing. He's got his offensive coordinator back. He's got a big upgraded offensive line ball account. He's got upgraded receivers. I think he's going to be in the MVP discussion again, but this time probably even more legitimately. And I think this team is going to exceed what they did last year. Better than 12 wins. 12 wins are better. And I just feel like we're really going to be contended. I like what our boy Rich Eisen said. He had us number 2 in his power ratings. It's more like it. But yeah, I just expect great things from Jaden Daniels. It's all
behind who? Philly?
Yes. Yeah, it's number 2 behind Philly.
I like it.
I like it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I'm not mad at that. I mean,
I just expect that they've taken pressure off of them. They've added offensive line. They're protecting their number 1 asset. They've added additional weapons, Deebo Samuel and the like. I like the the receiver group just in general, I think is going to be good. And there could be some surprises with some of the vets there.
Yeah.
I'm expecting good things, as
Me
Robert De
too.
Niro
Me
once said.
too. And frankly, I'm going to say what has already been said by some people, by smart people. You can just take what Jaden did last year and do it for the next 11 years. Doesn't need to
Of
get
course.
better. He just needs to keep doing what he did, and he'll be one of the best quarterbacks to play the game. That's all you have to do. He just has to keep doing what he did last year, and especially if he throws every pass that he threw last year exactly the same, and he's throwing them to Deebo Samuel and Jalen Lane as opposed to De'Ami Brown, Noah Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, and Luke McCaffrey, whatever combination of those four, behind Josh Connerly Jr. and Laramie Tunzel, as opposed to Andrew Wiley and Brandon Coleman, that's a 2 or 3 win difference right there, in my
Yep.
opinion.
Yeah, and I
And
think that,
the team was 12-5 last year.
yeah, and I mean you got different competition. Yeah, did you win a couple real tight ones? But the thing is, how much confidence do you have in Jaden Daniels with his hand with the ball in his hands for that final drive in close
Yeah.
games? You just got and that's pressure on the other guy because this guy just doesn't seem like he's not going to execute in those situations.
Yep.
Very rarely not going to execute. And yeah, I mean, I just think and I also think this is the point I was going to make. I almost lost it. You saw room for improvement, believe it or not. He's just such a rare talent that, but I think that some of his decision making in terms of when to run, when not to run, when to stick in the pocket, I think there's room for improvement there. I think there's room for improvement in some of the timing of his passes. We saw him start games a little rough, and then he would tend to find it later, right? But I mean, the timing of when to get a ball out of his hands, and for the most part, it was great. But
He was still a rookie.
there's still some room for improvement.
Yeah.
You saw a little bit of that rookie year, maybe not letting it go because he knew he could get it. He can get the yards with his legs if he had to. So I feel like he's just such a talented kid that you look at it and go, how could he possibly get any better? But if you break it down, there's room for improvement in him as a quarterback. And I think he'd be the first one to admit that. And that's the scary thing when it comes to Jaden.
And there's going to be the whole world is going to be pushing as hard as they can to find some kind of reason that Jaden Daniels is having a sophomore slump, just like they did with C.J. Stroud, who, by the way, went to the divisional round, won 10 games
really
with an absolute disaster of a roster last year, with no wide receivers, no offensive line, minus Tunzel. So I'm not.
They're two different players. I like C.J. Stroud. They're two different players.
Yeah, and I think my expectations are that Jaden continues to be a dog. It's that simple because I think that's just who he is. But time will tell. Should we add a free agent at edge? That is the number 2 question here. Top free agents are Von Miller from the Bills, Matt Judon from the Falcons, Preston Smith from the Steelers, and Zadarius Smith from the Lions. What do you think, Pop?
I say why not?
That's what I say too.
I kind of say why not? Bring in a Von Miller. Bring in
get 2.
Matt Judon. Why not? I mean, it's not like what you have is crazy good. They can be added to a rotation. Maybe they don't need to get a ton of stops. I know that, you hope that some of the young guys like Baptiste maybe really comes on strong. But bottom line is, he's a 7th-round pick. It's still a long shot. And so I say, why not? I say, go get the one you like the best and sign him and add him to the rotation. Why not?
Yeah, I would. There's some off the field stuff I'd stay away from when it comes to Von Miller, but Matt Judon or Zadarius Smith, I'd be all over either one.
You don't want to run it back with Preston?
If not both, no. I don't think Preston Smith's got much game left. I think Zadarius Smith can give you something. I think Matt Judon can give you something. I mean, I was all for what's his name, DeMarcus Lawrence before he ended up in Seattle. I was all over making that move. So it's I've said it. I said it on Twitter the other day. The 2022 draft class was going viral, and we literally have one player left from it. And I just said, this is why I don't care about these 1-year contracts, because roster-wise, this is still a multi-year rebuild, despite the early success that we
Yeah.
had last year because of Jaden Daniels. So I don't care about going out and getting Zadarius Smith on a 1-year deal and giving him, $11 million guaranteed or $15 million, whatever the market is for somebody like that. Because you got to have somebody play edge. But I think internally, here's the thing about the edge position. I think they are right now. I think the NFL undervalues secondary and overvalues pass rush in terms of the money, and I think they're ahead of that. And I think when you look at Dan Quinn's best defense in Seattle, it was not a pass rusher prominent defense. It was the Legion of Boom. It was an elite secondary that ran that defense, and they were able to manufacture pressure because they had an elite secondary that could win press man one-on-one. So I think that's what they're trying to build here. And I think they're trying to use guys like Luvu, maybe Medrano, maybe a Dominique Hampton, trying to use these guys as situational rushers. They don't like to just send 4 when they want to send heat. They like to send 5 or 6 guys. But you need look at the Eagles game. You had them at 4th and 6, 12-14. You had just scored a touchdown. You need a corner that can win in that press situation against A.J. Brown reliably. Now you had Marshawn Lattimore at 75% health, but you need a corner that can win in that situation in order to get that pass rush home because Jalen Hurts threw a seed. It was a beautiful ball, but he just barely got it off. If you had made him wait another half second, that's a sack, and we're talking about maybe a whole different. Who knows how things could have panned out differently after that? Philly fans will tell you it would have been different, but we all know it would have been different. So that is I think where this team is headed is the sticky coverage and manufacturing pressure when they
Yeah,
want
I
to.
think
So they
they
haven't
feel.
done that.
I mean, Adam Peters said it before the draft, and I'm sure they feel even stronger about it now. They feel like they can field a really good team. I mean, you got
Yeah,
one expert saying they're second best in the whole NFL, so that ain't bad. I don't
yeah,
love the idea they've got to manufacture or compensate for the fact that they don't have a top flight edge rusher. I mean, we make a lot out of Luvu. Luvu in pass rush at times disappeared last year, if we're being honest. I mean, he didn't always, he
well,
wasn't
it
always
wasn't
the
always.
best out there. But like you said, it's a multi-year
Yeah,
rebuild, and you're not going to be able to address every position. And I think I agree with you. They'll be able to do enough to figure it out. And bottom line is, if that's offense is what we think it is, you don't need a top 10 defense.
yeah,
You can't have a bottom 5 defense, but if you can have a middle ground defense that can do some damage and make some stops at times, which they were doing towards the end of last year at times.
yeah,
And I don't think they're any worse than last year, right? You could argue they're at least as good, if not a little better. And it's year
yeah.
two. Year 2 under a scheme is always beneficial, right?
And
So
statistically, offensive production is much more consistent year over year than defensive production is. Look at Cleveland a few years ago versus last year. And that's why I want to talk to some Philly fans about next year. But look at Baltimore 2 years ago versus last year. Look at Washington when we had Rivera here. We were bottom third of the NFL, and then a top 3 defense, and then bottom third of the NFL, and then middle of the pack. Teams, it's very hard to sustain year over year elite defensive performance without a TJ Watt, without a Nick Bosa, without a Myles Garrett, without an elite player on that defense, which are, they come by 5 or 6 of them per generation. So it's much more consistent to try and build, like we've talked about a million times, get a top 5 offense when you have the guy that you can build around in your quarterback, which we do, and build defensively to try and be average. Try to have guys that are positive win above replacement guys defensively, but you don't need absolutely elite defensive play when you have that offense because statistically it is significantly more consistent. So moving forward, top 2 non-quarterback position groups on the team on number 3. What do you think, Pop? For me, I'm going to go offensive line. It's crazy to say, but it might be offensive line and defensive back after this cycle, which is
I'd
wild,
say
right?
those are my two, too. I think offensive
Yeah,
line and corner, specifically
yeah.
corner, would be my 2, I think, top position groups, non-quarterback position groups on the team. But you wouldn't have said pre-draft.
No.
So
And I think you could be looking at wide receiver being the
possibly
best
that's the
position
other
group on
thought I
this
had.
team.
Possibly wide receiver.
But people want to act like Debo Samuel forgot how to play football. We'll see. Number 4, bottom 2 position groups on the team, biggest needs. I'm going to stick with running back, even though I do like Jackery Krosky Merritt as a fun end of the draft prospect. But realistically, how often does the 245th pick become an impact guy? Hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to go running back and pass rusher, defensive end.
Yeah, mine are defensive end and safety. So I
Yeah,
feel like there's questions at safety. Like it could turn out okay with what was it, Will Harris, the free
yeah,
agent signing, but I feel like there's questions at safety. And I'll say edge and safety are my two biggest concerns.
yeah.
Maybe with the depth that we have at corner and being able to rotate some guys into that safety position, but again, it just feels like the possibly one of those areas that we've got to sort of compensate for a bit.
Yeah, I agree. So would you say, with all this considered, did the Commanders close the gap with the Eagles in 2025? What do you think?
I'm going to say yes, only because I feel like when you're the Eagles and you're at the top of the heap and you're clearly the best team in the NFL, all you're really trying to do is maintain.
Yeah,
And I think they've got, they got a great GM. They got a great organization, as much as it pains us to say that. They had a really good draft. I know you loved, their first round pick.
great pick. Yeah,
Yeah. And it seemed like they continued to, got Jihad Campbell. They got Andrew Makuba, Texas safety, right? So they continued to solidify that defense, a defensive tackle in the 4th round, and Ty Robinson. So, they just stacked up defenders. Mac McWilliams is a cornerback in the 5th round. They went defense. That round 5, they went defense with a linebacker. We don't know anything about these guys, but that defense was already scary, and I know they lost a couple of guys in free agency as well. But I think that we closed the gap because of the additions that we were able to make year 2 of rebuild. Now, how close are we? That's a big question. I think that the Eagles are still clear favorites for this coming season.
yeah,
But, I think those are going to be, to me, if you circle games on this season, hopefully there'll be 3 of them again. It's those 2 Eagles games. I don't think anything is a close first and second. Those are going to be barn burners and fantastic matchups. And I feel like we're going to clearly see that gap has been closed, that we compete up against them.
The thing with the Eagles that makes next year, in my opinion, slightly more volatile than the public perception is that what is the follow-up to a 2,000-yard rushing season generally in the NFL? Can guys sustain that? Is that sustainable? Statistically, no. Generally, there's a drop-off. Now, if Saquon goes for 1,400 yards next year, they'll still be a playoff team. So that would be a 600-yard drop-off. They're still great, right? So I'm not saying they're going to be bad. But you combine that with losing Mekhi Becton, starting right guard, was a stud. Josh Sweat was a stud. Milton Williams was a stud. Darius Slay, backbone of the defense. C.J. Gardner-Johnson as well. Gone. You're talking, that's what? Sweat, Becton, Williams, C.J., Slay. That's 5 starters. 4 of which on that defense that we just discussed is statistically very hard to repeat year over year. Combine that with just the annual discussion of a Super Bowl hangover. It's always a thing. You're going to have to win in different ways this year. I think they're perfectly capable of doing it. I think they have a very talented roster. I think despite as much as we like to make fun of the guy, clearly they have a good head coach. And I think they'll find a way to do it, but I just don't think it's as sure of a sure thing as everybody wants to say it is, because this team got objectively worse on paper over the last year.
Well, and I think that's the difference.
Might not matter, but yeah.
No, but I think that's the difference, right? You've got one team that, you use the analogy of toothpaste some cases it was toothpaste on the wall that held up. I mean, you got one team that got, lightning in a bottle with a fantastic rookie quarterback, and,
Yeah,
landed a great head coach and, offensive coordinator, and really made a lot out of a roster that had holes.
yep,
So, we're replacing guys that were average to below average with guys that have much better prospects. Now they still got to prove it, just like the Eagles got. Eagles lost guys that are major contributors, like you said, played really, really well, and yeah, they've replaced them with guys they like a lot too. But you're not going from, you know, you're kind of trying to replace an 8 out of 10 with an 8 out of 10. We're replacing a 4 or 5 out of 10 with what we hope is a 7 or 8 out of 10 player, right? So I
yeah.
think that's why you would hope that roster improvement that the Commanders are seeing versus the Eagles is trying to maintain that level of excellence, which, like you said, isn't easy to do.
Yep,
That's why I would argue that the gap is closed, right? Because it's tough to be on top of that mountain.
100%. And it's the disease of more starts to creep in
Yeah,
as these things continue, and it's everybody's a Super Bowl champion now in the building, and that can affect things differently. But who knows? I hope we're having this discussion about the Commanders in a year or a couple of years, whatever. I hope that can be problems that we face. Congrats to the Eagles for what they accomplished last year. Certainly something special. And I still think on paper, I don't think we fully closed the gap.
no.
But I do think the gap is smaller. I think anybody that even tries to be objective would say that. I don't think we closed it. The bottom line is, will it be enough? We'll see. It should be interesting.
The exciting part is you have a legit when you talk who are the contenders for the NFC, and you're only going to get 2, 3, maybe 4 deep before the Commanders' name comes up,
I don't
and
think,
that's
I mean,
just crazy good.
it should be Philly. The conversation should be Philly, Washington, and Detroit. That's it. I don't see
I
anybody
think
else that
so.
you would insert in that conversation.
I think so.
JJ McCarthy with Minnesota. Like, what's the next? Is Jordan Love
Yeah.
gonna get it together? Like, I don't see it other than that. But anyways, let's wrap this thing up. We chopped
Let's
it up
wrap it.
for quite a bit of time here, but it's been a good time. I got some sauce to go stir, man. All right.
Do it.
Without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thank you for another great week, everybody, and hail to the Commanders.
Hail.